Good evening. I hope that this works because I've been trying for a few minutes and having my share of issues, but I do like to make these YouTube videos from time to time. I try to make the MP3 recordings, a few times a week. I wanted to mention two chapters in particular from this book. Your book is brown unless you bought it used. But anyhow, this is the 8th edition, just like yours. But I definitely wanted to refer you to two chapters to look at this evening. Chapter 2 talks about process in technical communication, and in particular, there's a planning form on page 39, and this same planning form is also at the very last page of the book. That's a good idea to use for the documents for this class, but even documents you do for work, or if you're involved in the parent-teacher organization with your children or the scouts or your church youth ministry or whatever it may be, it's always good to plan ahead on your readers. What are they looking for? What do they need to know? And so on. So, so that part looks at the planning form. Then on the back on page 40, they go through instructions for using that. The rest of this chapter, they go through your readers, and if you notice on 44 and 45, they show that you have managers, experts, operators, and general readers. And in this chapter, but also in chapter 4, they show that sometimes you aim for the highest level of readers, particularly like experts and operators. And then at times, you have a mixed group, so different parts of the document will cover different readers depending on whom you are writing to in that particular section. And then, the other option, of course, is to write for the lowest level of understanding. So, I've had students before that are in petroleum and natural gas. And so even using the pH level or the saturation with oxygen, saturation with water, the well depth, and so on, those would all have to be explained in layman's general language, not in the jargon of the discipline. Now, if you were writing to another petroleum and natural gas engineer, that's fine, because they would certainly be expected to know that. There are students in this class that are in radiology, okay? So there's different facets of it. So, when you do like a CAT scan or an MRI, you can look at different parts of the body. You can even break it you can section the body up. So if you wanted to look at the liver or the kidneys and you wanted to look at sideways or whatever, you could do that. But again, people that are radiologists or radiology technicians and people that are in medicine would understand those terms. But if you were speaking to a more general audience, you could say that you can, break up the parts of the body, or you could slice it like you would a loaf of bread. So if you want to slice a loaf of bread this way, you can. If you want to slice it the traditional way, you can. Any way you want to slice it, you can do it. And the same thing with the human body, with radiology. Keep in mind, too, in technical writing, you can always use similes, metaphors, or analogies. Similes and metaphors, like a simile will use like or as to make a comparison. A metaphor will make a comparison without like or as, but it makes it simpler, makes it much more understandable how something is done and how, like, perhaps a certain procedure will be completed. So, but I would urge you to read through chapter 2, and then the other chapter that I want you to read through multiple times would be chapter 4. And again, in that particular chapter, they go through the ABC format, which is highlighted on pages 94 to about 97. And then earlier in that chapter, they also mentioned the top-down format. That's on pages 91, 92, and especially like on 92 on the bottom, they mentioned the top-down format at the bottom of that page. So it's a redundant, repetitive approach to technical communication where you briefly state your main findings and conclusions at the beginning of the document, and then you repeat those and develop them in the body, then you review them again once again in the conclusion. So whatever you do, please make sure to read these two chapters, because to me, they're two of the most critical chapters, in our book. And what I wanted to mention to you, okay, so for this week, by Friday the 18th, you do need to email me a link to an article for your summary assignment. And once again, somebody said, well, what should I do it on? Well, of course, you can always use EBSCOhost, and an EBSCOhost to our library site, you can always forward the link to me, and so I can get it. So, if you're in radiology, there's lots and lots of interesting radiological articles that there are these days. But if you're in computer science or networking or, welding, any of those areas, lots and lots of possibilities. I get more articles on nanotechnology these days, 3D printing, on different types of welds and welding equipment that there is, safety equipment, which is important. But the idea is you're going to summarize the article in a visual way, like using kind of like like you would like brainstorming the main ideas, and then about 5 of the sub-ideas broken up to 3 or 4 points. And you can look at some of the examples and assignments, but you do like a visual organizer, a longer summary of approximately 1,000 words, more or less, and then a shorter summary, which would be about a third of that. Keep in mind, whatever kind of job that you have, there will be times where you have to present information in different ways and for different purposes. So my sister Beth is an RN, and when patients have strokes, like she worked in patient education at Excella Westmoreland, and so for a patient that has a stroke, they try to give that person minimal information, but enough to kind of have an understanding if they're mentally, okay. And then, of course, the family members and so on. But they try to educate the patient and the family members as far as how to deal with someone suffering from the after effects of a stroke, how to gain their mobile agility and abilities back again, the neurological capacities, and so on. So, but anyhow, like I said, sometimes you're going to have to present information in different ways. So, but just for this Friday the 18th, that's all you need to do is send me the link. It's a very basic assignment, and so wanted to take a little break here the semester. I'm also starting a late start class this time, and so I need a little extra time myself. And then for Friday the 25th, in the syllabus and some other places, I have it noted as the 28th, so that was my error. But if you need to take until the 28th, which is that Monday for the summary assignment, I'm definitely not opposed to that. That would actually give me a little bit more time. But if you want to submit it by the 25th, that is fine. But again, you're presenting the same information in 3 different ways, which is really, really good practice because, as a professional, you may be called upon to do that at some point in your career. And then the Consumer Report discussion board posting, I actually read one today, and the student was doing it on pressure washers, which is such a versatile device. I commented on his, and that's something you can use to wash your cars, to clean off your aluminum siding, driveways, lawnmower decks underneath them, lawn equipment, charcoal grills, your patio, steel furniture, children's toys, that are plastic toys that kind of get a little bit gunky outside. So it's a really, really good tool. So you're looking at 3 brands of a product, and then you're comparing them. If you don't use price, you only need to use 4 points of criteria. With price, you need to use 5 of them. So, that's what's coming up. So I want you to post, and make sure to post for that one by the 25th. You don't need to respond to anybody's post, but if you have good information, you can say, hey, I own this kind of hunting bow, or this is a really good brand of ski. I would recommend that to you, and that sort of information. That's about it. I don't want this to go over 10 minutes because sometimes these stop running over 10 minutes. Just hope you're learning more on sentence level writing, also on formatting, and also your word choice and clarity in writing. So those all make a difference. And this class will help you as a student, as a professional, but also as a consumer. Trust me on that. It will pay dividends throughout your entire life. Thanks.